Hi everyone, welcome back to AFTV, welcome back to the Tactical Insight Show. We're live on YouTube, which is pretty much the only thing we've got to be happy about when it comes to this show, because Arsenal they really dropped one against Brighton on the weekend. We're going to go into it. We are live on YouTube, guys, so send in your comments, interact with us, any questions you got about things Arsenal did tactically, what they should have done better, what they should do for the next game, whatever it is you want to ask. Discuss it with us. We're looking forward to doing this live, and I think it's going to be a regular feature going forward. So Graham, good to see you. It's always good to see you. I wish it was with something slightly more positive to talk about. But just how are you feeling, mate? How are you doing?
I'm very well, mate. Did you have a nice holiday in Thailand?
I did, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I forgot, yeah. Actually, you come back and Arsenal dropped 3 points, and you kind of forget you had that lovely 2 weeks of holiday. But it was lovely, yeah. I missed it. I did miss it here, but I had a really great time. And yeah, it's good to be back.
Nice to have you back. I mean, obviously the Don was back in the chair last week. So,
yeah, how was that?
Interesting. That's the time I've done one with him for a couple of years, but yeah, it's nice to be back with him. Also, I miss you, mate.
So thank you. Appreciate it.
And, as much as it's a defeat, always enjoy breaking down the games with you.
I appreciate it. Well, guys, I've got the comments coming up here on my phone, so do send in any thoughts, any comments, any feedback you've got, anything you noticed from the game that maybe you want us to answer, talk about, send them in. We've got already one from Vernon saying, like Arsenal didn't turn up. Sorry we're late. We've had a few... the live thing's new to us, okay? We're gonna smooth it out. Leo asking, why did El Neni not play? That is maybe something we could go into as well. Vibav asking, would you keep Arteta on a new ownership? A lot of questions coming in, so we're going to answer a lot of them throughout the show, and we'll do like a big kind of, say, Q&A, but towards the end, just any kind of questions that are maybe slightly away from just the game itself, we can answer as well. As we only have Graham here once a week, so any questions, anything you want to ask away from the game, do get it in. But let's talk about the game. Got the big iPad here, got some match stats to go into, as we always do. We open with those. I mean, are these slightly deceiving, Graham?
Yeah, I think so, mate. I think we build the show today. Did he overthink it? I think we should be saying, did he imbalance the team? Mm-hmm. Did he set us up to fail? That's the sort of question we'll be, I think, looking to talk about today. But I
think I was trying to be nice, but you're absolutely right. Yeah.
If you look at those stats, they're so misleading, aren't they? It just shows you our stats. If you just look at stats and you haven't watched the game, you look at that and think that Arsenal dominated the game.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that in the stadium. I was there. It's one of the worst first half performances I've seen for a long time. We had 20 shots, 4 on target to their 3. I'd like to know how many of those shots were in the last 10 minutes where you decided to turn up.
Yeah, I agree.
Obviously more possession, more passes, and better XG. But for all that, I just don't think we did enough to win the game, and we were very poor. We wanted a reaction after the Crystal Palace game, and I think we didn't get it. And part of that we're going to go into today is the problems he had in sort of with his team selection, which I think he made massive mistakes. If he had his time again, I don't think he would have gone with that team at the start.
Yeah, I agree, and that was the kind of big talking point we said before coming in on Saturday. Cecil, Robbie, Turkish and I were talking, and we said, actually for a few weeks, actually for a few months, when we did the starting 11 shows on the weekends, it was kind of, we know what to expect. There might be the odd change if there's an injury we don't know about, but generally you know what you're going to get. This was the more interesting one because we were going into it thinking we don't know what he's going to do to deal with the problems of Thomas Partey being injured. We know how crucial he is in the lone pivot role. Kieran Tierney being out at left back. Tavares hasn't been in great form in the last couple games. So we didn't know what he was going to do, and that was the big thing around it. But it was mainly that Tierney-Tavares thing. How did you see it?
It was interesting. First of all, Graham Potter said he didn't know what Arteta was going to do. I mean, the key decision he had to make, I think, was what did he do with replacing Kieran Tierney? Kieran Tierney is a massive part of the Arsenal team in the way he plays, either up high or defensively. Now, against Crystal Palace, Tavares had a shocker, no doubt about it. He wasn't doing the things that Arteta wanted, particularly in the wide rotations up high. We wanted him to be running on beyond, but he wasn't doing that. So I could understand a bit what his thinking was in maybe taking him off. But he's now hooked him twice in 2 games. For a young player, that's not great. And when he sees Granit Xhaka take his place at left back, that tells you, I think, his days at the club are done. And I just think his confidence will be shot to pieces. I think the thing is, I said with Robbie last week, I thought was hoping that Tomiyasu would be fit, so Tomiyasu could come back on the right-hand side. So if you put Cedric on the left-hand side, it's almost like two fullbacks, isn't it? As much as Cedric is better on the right than on the left, but Cedric has been playing well in the team, so you could understand that. But to put Xhaka at left back, I think totally imbalanced the team. It took away what Xhaka offers in centre mid, up high on the left hand side, or in centre mid, where he could have played him next to Lokonga. It also sort of like means that with Lokonga coming into the number 6 role, a role that he's barely played, 3 months out of the team, tremendous responsibility against a very physical, hard-working, high-pressing Brighton team. A lot of responsibility. So to accommodate that, Odegaard played slightly deeper. You lost the wide rotations on the right. I know you're going to talk about the numbers from Tierney and Tavares, because it's interesting that it might have influenced his thinking. Yeah,
you sent these through, and I think is it the drop off in quality?
Yeah,
is it the drop off in quality and consistency that's made Arteta think he can't turn to Nuno? I remember doing Tactical Insight after Tavares had a couple games, and we were already looking at how his numbers going forward. He was offering perhaps even more than Tierney in his couple games. But are these about almost safety and looking after the ball and being dependable and consistent?
Possibly. I'd like to know really why Nuno's gone from being what he was early in the season to what he is now.
Yeah.
Is that simply because poor management? Is that because he hasn't felt part of the team? I don't know. Clearly, Kieran Tierney's numbers are a lot higher than Nuno, but he bought him as a backup left back, didn't he?
Yeah,
so
a young backup left
back.
So
have some faith in him, and I think the way, all players have bad games, and I think it's been said on other shows on AFTV, you could hook loads of different players when they're having poor games, but for some reason it's easier to hook a young left back. There's a drop off in quality there, but I think this is a game where he had to show faith. If Tomiyasu wasn't going to be available, I think it's a massive call to play Xhaka at left back, particularly as it didn't work last season.
Yeah, agreed. So this is what he did. Let's have a little look at the starting 11s here. He went with Granit Xhaka at left back. Let's actually highlight him so everyone can see where we're talking. He went with Granit Xhaka at left back, which meant Smith Rowe coming in to central midfield, Albert Sambi, Lokonga. Let me just make this a little bit clearer for everyone so they can see. Apologies. There we go. That should make it a little bit clearer for you guys. Lokonga came in. But then I also want to point out that obviously Cedric is starting at right back. So that's almost 4 positions where we didn't have our first choice player in that role. I think the disappointment is that it didn't have to be that way. Because if he'd stuck with Tavares at left back and played Xhaka in central midfield, take out Smith Rowe, suddenly, if we get Tavares in there, suddenly you're not talking about that position being another weakened area. So why do you think Arteta, why did he go with this? Why do you think he wanted to go and take another crucial part of our central midfield out when we'd already lost Thomas Partey?
It tells me that he doesn't trust Tavares, and it tells me that he went with the players he trusts over the system and style that's made the team successful this season. That's what it told me. But I just think that Xhaka next to Sambi. I mean, Sambi's coming in to play that lone pivot role. Number 6 was a big ask against Brighton, and I think Xhaka next to him would have helped him build up.
Yeah.
And Xhaka could still go high when we got the ball high, and maybe look to sort of sit in those wide left areas when we were attacking, maybe. So, but I think the decision to put Smith Rowe at number 8 hasn't worked this season. He's more a number 10 or a wide left player than a number 8.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it showed on Saturday, James.
Yeah, I completely agree. There was a real imbalance to the team. You sent me, I found this so interesting, a stat you sent through. The front five, so we're talking Martinelli, Lacazette, Saka, Odegaard, Smith Rowe, only completed 19 passes altogether in the first 20 minutes. Gabriel completed 20 on his own. So let's talk about Arsenal and build-up. Why did it go so wrong? What happened?
I think the problem we had in build-up was Brighton go man-to-man, James. Mm-hmm. So they literally went man-to-man, marked us man-to-man. The only sort of like 2v1 we had at the back that I noticed was when White and Gabriel had the ball, just Welbeck. So you had the 2v1 there. So when you got like a man-for-man marking system like this, you need one of your centre halves, I think, to take the ball and drive into midfield. And this wasn't happening. White was criticised a lot for slowing the game down. I think the tactic he has is more or less, he puts his foot on the ball and tries to invite these players to move out of their positions.
Right, and he got criticism for that. I was talking to people after the game, and they were saying White was so frustrating. He was looking after the ball too long. He was too slow with it. We were talking about there's a method behind the madness.
It basically what he tries to do is he wants the players to come and press him. But they are not going to do that. They're just going to sort of sit in their positions, man marking their players. So when he saw that happen, I think the thing he had to do, so when Gabriel White had the ball, whoever had the ball had to drive forward and try and move the markers out of position to sort of like create some gaps. And that didn't happen. We just sort of kept recycling the ball. I thought in that first 25 minutes, Brighton were a team who understood the structure that they were playing in, a 3-5-2 with the almost like the 5 across midfield and Trossard
let's highlight him.
Yeah, so Trossard and Welbeck up.
So you sort of had the back three, and then you had that kind of 5 or whatever it would be, whether it be McAllister closer to Welbeck.
McAllister was moving up high or dropping in. But they seemed to understand how they had to play. They understood their system. Arsenal looked like a team in that first 25 minutes struggling to come to terms with how Arteta wanted them to play, and that was a massive difference. So what you saw in the first 25 minutes was Brighton really quietened the crowd quite quickly, and the crowd started to get frustrated because Arsenal were just not attacking, just not moving the ball quickly, not getting their players into wide areas where they could do what they normally do, use their wide rotations. Brighton were pretty much bossing the ball, I think, because we weren't doing, when we had the ball, we just weren't looking to move them out of their shape. And as a result of that, they were very comfortable. They were quite slick the way they moved it around, and we just couldn't get going. There was just no intensity in the play, nobody willing to take a chance, and we got the old Arsenal of recycling the ball from side to side, and players not sort of like the combinations that we had in the team were gone, were disconnected by the way Arteta had set the team up. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, I agree. We've got super chat from Simon, says Nuno's first season and still adjusting to the league. I completely agree, and I thought Brighton at home was a good opportunity to give him more experience and more exposure to the Premier League and more games, because actually I felt in the first half of the season when he played and came in, he did well. And it's not just at home to Newcastle, at home to whoever. Watford, I think he played that game. Villa as well. He actually went to Leicester and played very, very well. And he was looking defensively very reliable because he's tall and he's strong, and positionally he was doing well. So it was a surprise to me he didn't play in this game. We want to talk about Arsenal being really, really narrow, because this was actually, if I take it back to the tactical pad, right, we've shown it kind of in build up, and again I'll highlight just by moving around Granit Xhaka. His role was to come into that inverted fullback role, a role very much invented by
hybrid,
Pep.
He played like a hybrid position. I thought second half he came more into midfield as we changed it slightly, but in the first half he was almost like hybrid. He was left back but trying to get into the midfield as well. But
we saw some really strange stuff, Graham, right? Because there's a couple of things that I just think in your mind when you're talking about balance in football you need to have. So I remember last season when Xhaka played as an inverted fullback at times. Sometimes it worked, but because it was Pepe who was on the touchline, who's left-footed, I was naturally hugging the width. So when he got the ball, we got Martinelli here, but actually let's bring Pepe in. Where is he? Over here. When Pepe was getting the ball on the touchline, naturally there was more of a drive. Do you remember that goal he scored against Southampton when... It was actually Xhaka who played the ball, but Xhaka was playing in midfield that day. Cedric was playing as the left back. But when you're left-footed and you can naturally kind of cover that area of the pitch a lot better. Martinelli being right-footed, wanting to come in towards goal. Xhaka naturally hugging those spaces. There was a whole flank that was completely unaccounted for, and we were incredibly imbalanced, and I was so surprised that's what Arteta wanted to go with, when you could have just had Martinelli coming inside a little bit more and Tavares going forward, or even Smith Rowe and Tavares have built a good relationship. And actually, let me just show you this. Average positions against Brighton. So we got this from whoscored.com, and it tells you everything. Look how narrow that pitch is, because you've got, if we just show them in yellow, you've got Granit Xhaka, who's meant to be a left back, in line with Martinelli. And the whole point of, let's do that again, but the whole point of, positional play football and, whatever it's called, whatever they say it is, the whole point is that you have rotations. You got, if one player's inside, then the other's hugging the touchline. But when he comes inside to receive the ball, then the other's overlapping. And Tierney's got that adaptability and flexibility, can do both roles quite well. And we lacked that against Brighton.
We did. I think that's the problem when you got a left back. We haven't got a proper left back. He can't overlap, can he? I think fullbacks are integral to the way Arteta's system has been working over the last few months, and it's integral to the way he wants to play.
Yeah.
So to put Xhaka in the team, not offering that, I think offered that imbalance on that side.
Yeah.
Now, but for all that, then on the right hand side, which you're going to show now, we were all equally as imbalanced for some reason, and I can only think that partly because of the way Odegaard played. Odegaard sort of like normally has been our main creator up high on the right hand side, working with Xhaka, with Cedric coming out, and there's triangles in the wide areas. But look at the gap on that right hand side, James. Now we're even Cedric there on the halfway line, and you can see how narrow Odegaard and Saka are. They're not. Saka's normally out really wide right. Odegaard is inside him, and Cedric's looking to get up there. But look, there's a gap there on the right hand side.
Yeah.
Equally, there's a gap on the left hand side. So we were just incredibly narrow, and that really did play into Brighton's hands, because that's where Brighton were congesting the pitch. I still think they would have possibly dropped back into a back five had we sort of like worked that. But I still think if we had played the diagonal balls, we got players up high, we could have maybe worked some situations and still worked some openings. But we just didn't play like that, and that's another reason the imbalance comes, I think, from Xhaka playing at left back, Lokonga playing at 6. You're having to adjust your system to play Xhaka at left back. Xhaka should have been in centre mid with Lokonga. Lokonga on his own, that means that Odegaard is not getting so high on the right hand side. Maybe conscious of that, Lokonga's got to anchor the midfield on his own. So I think that's the problems that I think Arteta created with his team selection. And I think when he looks back on it, I can only think that he will regret. He won't admit it, but surely he will regret the way that he went. I know.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, guys, let me show you this. This is our average positions against Aston Villa, and it shows. Not too long ago, Arsenal were getting it right. Here's Cedric. No, sorry, used the wrong. There we go. See, you can tell I've been away, can't you? Here's Cedric. Here's Tierney. High, wide. The widest players in the Arsenal team. Saka, not on top of Odegaard. Okay, maybe not as wide, but he's the almost the pitch stretcher. He's the one who's stretching the opposition. And then look at the gaps between Odegaard.
The gaps between Odegaard and Saka on Saturday were massive. They just weren't connecting at all, and that was the problem we had. So when we went forward and we did get it out to Saka, where there was nobody out there, Odegaard would be out there to support him. Brighton just doubled up, even had 3 players out there, so literally nullified him. And the same with Martinelli on the other side. He was always instead of having Xhaka or Tierney up high, he was having to literally take on 2 or 3 of them at a time. So the system that Arteta went with, that just showed how it didn't work, and it's revealed in these pitch match positions. And this just shows how it was working in the previous game when we won at Aston Villa.
Look at them, no players on top of each other, space. They use the pitch well. And at home at the Emirates, it's kind of different maybe when you go to a different ground. But and it all fell apart from Xhaka at points coming into midfield, Lokonga filling in at left back. Second half, then Martinelli's filling in at left back while Xhaka comes into midfield. I honestly thought Arteta absolutely lost the plot. Let's go through some comments before we break down Brighton's first goal, which isn't going to be very fun, but we do have to do it. Adam says Lacazette should have been dropped. He wants to see Saka at left back, Xhaka in midfield, and then Pepe, Martinelli and Smith Rowe across the front 3 positions. I tell you what, there is goals in that front 3, to be fair. Jonga says Pepe as a striker has been so obvious for some time now. Billy Dalton says he wants to see a 3-4-3 with Ramsdale, White, Gabriel and Holding at the back, Cedric, Odegaard, Xhaka, Tavares, and then Saka, Martinelli and Pepe. Hope says, why are we not focusing on how poor our forwards were? Yeah, absolutely, something to talk about. We will go into that in a little bit, because goal scoring has 100% been a problem. And then Me says, the problem was lack of width. Absolutely right, and we've addressed that there. You can see it in the average positions map. What was the other comment? Perseus says, you need a new manager like Graham Potter. Listen, I quite like Graham Potter, but I don't know if the manager and his future is a talking point. I think we've got to see where the season goes between now and the end of the season. But it was a bad day, and it's been a really, really bad week. Shall we look at Brighton's first goal?
If we must.
I know, yeah. If we must. Unfortunately, we must.
And this came, James, before you break it down. Yeah. They'd had a very good opening 20 minutes. They had a lot of the ball. We had one chance, Gabriel with a header from the where he got in at the back stick, I think from a set play. But then they broke away. Well, they didn't break away, but they put this passing move together and undid us and took the lead. And bear in mind, before we go into this, Brighton had only 1 point in their last 7 games and only scored 1 goal prior to this game.
There you go, tells you everything. So we're starting from Pascal Gross on the ball. Granit Xhaka's gone to press him. Again, let me just quickly change the colour so you guys can see the numbers a bit better. So Xhaka's gone to press Gross, and in fairness, the press works. I think what's the problem here is that Arsenal's back 4 are so far apart from Xhaka, and Lokonga doesn't cover that space. Is he necessarily meant to? I'm not sure. Maybe you could say Smith Rowe's meant to be there. But anyway, so it goes back to Dunk. I've slowed this right down just to show, because Lacazette and Martinelli go with him, and then the ball comes over the top, and then Mwepu has basically hung on basically the back 3. Goes over the top, sped it up here a bit. He's running in. Brighton have 5 players attacking the penalty area, but Trossard's clever, because the cutback comes in and he's just hanging on the edge of the area, scores. It's a lovely finish. If I break it down frame by frame, so when the ball comes to Dunk here, sorry, let's just go back again. Apologies. When the ball comes to Dunk, Mwepu's being played on side here by Cedric. So essentially, let me show it like this. I mean, essentially, Gabriel does come forward. White's on his way forward, I think, plays him on as well. But Cedric's the main one who's not come up. Dunk goes for the long ball. And then Mwepu, when he's running in this position here, you can see by the arrows, Gabriel, White, Cedric are just powering back towards the penalty area to try and get back. Lokonga's trying to cover and get back into the penalty area as well. But it's almost like Lokonga's gone way past Smith Rowe and Odegaard's line to get into the box. And Smith Rowe and Odegaard aren't able to get back. So there's a massive gap between the almost back line and then the midfielder are tracking back as well. And that is where Trossard recognises the space. He attacks it. We've got a back 4 in line because Lokonga has come in and filled in where Gabriel's going to cross. So that's not almost too much, really too much of a problem. And Brighton did have 4 players in the box at that point, but when it's cut back to Trossard, he's just in acres of space. And that's where, he's got all the time in the world, picks his spot, and it's a really lovely finish. Look, it's a good ball from Dunk, it's a good run from Mwepu. Where for you has that gone wrong? Should Xhaka have not pressed there? Should Lokonga have covered better? Was Smith Rowe, Odegaard far too far from the defensive action? I mean, you look at the problems and the changes Arsenal had to make to their team, and it's almost highlighted in this goal because, it would be Tierney normally pressing, not Xhaka, and then maybe be Partey and Xhaka running to defend that area. Instead, it's Smith Rowe, Lokonga, maybe Odegaard are having to get back and deal with it. So you can see where the problems we had in that team, in the starting 11, the change we had to make impacted that first goal. Yeah,
absolutely. I agree 100% there. The change in the personnel. I think when you've got a structure in your back line who understand the way everybody's going to play, that I think deals with that situation far better. When you put someone in there like Xhaka, who's not a normal left back, it disrupts the way you defend that situation. I think that's part of it. I think the other thing is I thought that because we've been so poor in the first 20 minutes, James, and we were frustrated, I think, the way we were playing, the players became slightly indisciplined off the ball. and that led to Brighton getting that opening. Trossard's really clever because he hungs back, and all the players are attracted to the ball. So, but nobody picked him up, and he came in late. I mean, that is, I literally looked straight across the pitch. When that came across, I just knew he was going to tuck it away. Yeah. And it was a good finish. But yeah, I think it comes from the disunity of, I hate to say it, the back line being disrupted, and Xhaka playing at left back, and I think that's part of it. Players trying to retrieve the situation as well, because of that.
Someone said, I think we did a live Turkish and I last night, and someone was saying, "Oh, here we go, you guys blaming Xhaka again." I wasn't blaming Xhaka. I actually thought his individual performance was absolutely fine. I felt sorry for him that he had to play at left back, and like, credit to him, he always, gives his all and does whatever's asked of him. My issue with him playing a left back was that we didn't have him in midfield. Yes, that was my issue. I felt for him. Yeah. I'd like Lokonga to have had that experience and almost kind of. He's quite robust, isn't he, Xhaka? Yeah. Like he's. I can imagine for all the errors he makes, he's quite a safe presence because he gets stuck in and he doesn't shy away from responsibility, whether he gets it wrong or not with his judgment. I'd like to have had Lokonga coming in for Partey and Xhaka a bit closer to him, but this is where for all this, people will call it hindsight and complain about the team Arteta put out. I do think we should look at what the potential lineup could have been and how that might have been different. So. Let's have a little look. We talked about the build-up problems. This is how we looked in build-up. What would you have done? What would you have done differently in terms of the lineup before anything else?
The first thing I'll do is I'll give credit to Granit Xhaka, right? Because I'm not criticising him either. Yeah. You got to remember he's been a model professional this year. He's played out of his comfort zone now in two different positions, up high on the left and that left back. So I'm not criticising him at all.
And he came back immediately from injury.
And he's had a good season, to be fair to him. But I think for me that the team, look, I think we had to keep the system that he'd been playing going, and that would have been Tavares at left back. If Tomiyasu hadn't been fit, which he wasn't, although it's good to see him in the stadium, but and then Cedric could have gone over left. But if you're not going to do that, you play your left back. You play Tavares on the left hand side. I wanted to see.
So let's depict it. So you want Tavares in there at left back. So who comes out? It could be Martinelli, Smith Rowe, Lacazette, Xhaka.
No, I want Xhaka next to Lokonga as a pivot because I think Lokonga coming in to anchor the midfield on his own, 3 months out of the team. When Partey plays
that, take Smith Rowe out?
Yeah, I wouldn't have played Smith Rowe. I think that was his choice. I would have. That's what I would have started with. Saka, Lacazette, and Martinelli as a front three, and I would have played Xhaka next to Lokonga more. But Lokonga, so I would have dropped him back slightly from where he normally is, but he could still go high on the left hand side at times to press, and also he could be up there occasionally involved in some build up. So, but I would have wanted him, and that if you'd done that, then Odegaard could have been further forward on the right hand side, wouldn't have had to play so deep, and he could have been closer to Saka, and that would have given us some wide combinations on the right where we've been effective this season. So that one tweak changes everything in the way that we were playing.
But I also think, fine, you've got two young players in Tavares and Lokonga who have come in, right? And you're thinking maybe they don't have a security to their game or elements to their game that Partey and Tierney have. Okay, cool, I understand that. You bought them for the future. You could have that 11 out and tweak it slightly so that you're not compromising the system, but you're just giving them a little bit more protection. So here's an example of what I mean, right? You could have Lokonga and Xhaka just a little bit closer together, maybe a double pivot building up. Yeah. You can have Odegaard maybe as a bit more of a 10, so that Lacazette isn't having to come in and always run into this space. I mean, he's always going to. He wants to look after the ball. But you can have Odegaard there. You could have Martinelli and Saka just a little bit closer to Lacazette, so he's got someone to play off. He can knock it and run. You got naturally then a better threat towards goal because you've got those runs being made. But then you could have Cedric and Tavares bombing on. So you could have Tavares, who we know is an exciting, enthusiastic fullback who wants to get forward. Cedric does his best work going forward as well. And then you've just got this robust four here that can just almost be hanging back while the others go and express themselves. So you're not completely reinventing the wheel. Arteta's done this with Smith Rowe out on the left, who would be in the left winger, but he'd come inside, and then Tavares and Tierney would bomb on. We've seen that before. So I just don't know why. I know hindsight's a wonderful thing. It's so easy after the fact to sit here and go, he should have done this, Brighton did that. So Brighton would have responded to those tactics anyway. But I just think he could have done more to get the players who actually play their positions in the team and then giving them a little bit more protection.
Yeah, and the other point I want to make, with Odegaard playing so deep, we didn't have him, our press wasn't as good as it normally is.
Very true.
Odegaard leads the press up high, so Brighton were comfortable in the way they played out a lot of the time. So Odegaard would have not only offered more on the ball, but more off the ball in his pressing.
Yeah.
And I think also, if you look at the way, we talked about wide rotations, and Cedric and Tavares up high, but maybe Cedric recognising that he's a senior fullback, if Tavares is going to be the one bombing on, he can maybe not be so high all the time. It's all about sort of like rotations in the way you, not only the way you build up when you're up high, but in the way that both fullbacks don't always have to go high at the same time.
Yeah.
So maybe Cedric could play more inverted in this game, with giving Tavares more of a licence to go high, with knowing that Xhaka's back next to Lokonga. When that happens. So, and I'm pretty sure they could have worked on systems in training that could have sort of like played in this way up high. You know,
think?
I would have thought so.
I've even just shown here what Arteta was doing very early, almost from day one in his Arsenal managerial career, which was playing Xhaka central midfield but dropping into the left back role.
Yeah.
Tavares gets forward, and then you've got Martinelli closer to Lacazette as well. You've got more of a goal threat. So there were a lot of options that. I know it's hindsight. I know Arteta's a coach and he's done his badges and he worked for the best, and why would he care what I think? But there is so much more I would have tried and attempted before, what he ultimately went with.
We never had anybody running on the outside, did we, on Saturday? No. And that was I think, detrimental to creating, as much as Odegaard was not forward enough to create either. So the whole system was just totally imbalanced. So we've touched on it today, and also the narrowness of the way he played. Xhaka at left back, obviously, he can't offer what a left back can offer up high, and he's not as as experienced he is and positionally aware as he is. He's a midfield player. He's not, and he has filled in on the left side. I get that, but I just think it was a disaster. And this was the game against Brighton that I thought maybe we could have afforded to play Tavares in. If you're going to play Tavares in one game, this was the game to play him against a team who was struggling to score goals, who you want to push back onto the back foot and have them defending. They quickly understood that Arsenal was struggling with the imbalance, and they started to play some nice football, Brighton. Yeah, we got some super chats from Pramod. Says, great show, guys, good to see you back, James. Robbie did a good job, but your analysis gives the show something extra. Thank you, I appreciate that. Graham is always at his best. And Nick says, should have played Tavares at left back and Xhaka Lokonga as defensive midfielders, Martinelli up front with Smith Rowe on the left next to Odegaard, Saka. Yeah, that's a good point. Amo says Arteta is out of his depth. There was another one here, another good comment. Slow Talker says, whenever we're faced with injuries, Arteta makes wild selections. He needs to learn better how to deal with injuries. From when I saw our midfield, I knew it was going to be a bad afternoon. The same midfield trio, whilst there's talent and potential there, the same midfield trio that lost the Carabao Cup semi-final to a depleted Liverpool side, or depleted, not lacked two of their best players, drew with Burnley at home. So there is previous that this side struggles to score goals. Beat Burnley 1-0 away from home at Turf Moor, very good, but it was an Odegaard free kick, and ultimately we struggled for goals then too. Harry says, you're right, James, he overcomplicated it all. Someone said he should have played Martinelli at left back. Well, he kind of did. He did in the second half.
And this is why we're going to look at we've done a lot of work on the tactical pack today, actually, but I've enjoyed it because it's the best way to illustrate what we saw from Arteta and how strange it was, because in that second half, he did try, or even towards the end of the first half, he did try to change it at times. But it was really bizarre, because we look at it here, okay? So we said that Xhaka was picking up this role in build-up as kind of the inverted left centre-back. But then at times he came in, and then Lokonga dropped wide, which didn't really make sense. I don't know if it's because he wanted to get Xhaka more involved in build-up and ball progression. But then there were times where, honestly, I kid you not, I saw this in the second half. Xhaka further forward, Lokonga still in there, and Martinelli basically expected to kind of be a left back, left wing back, left forward, all in one role. I mean, he tried some really weird stuff. And also Smith Rowe then was also like, Martinelli was almost like playing left wing back second half, and Smith Rowe was out wider. Yes, he was. You're right.
So Martinelli and Smith Rowe were trying to combine on that side. Smith Rowe was drifting out wide, as you say, Xhaka coming up high. That seemed to be what he was trying to replicate the second half, almost like that system.
He lost the plot, didn't he? Sorry, Mikel.
But we were just chasing it second half. We talked about what we would have done at half time, changes we could have made. But he didn't really change it, did he? He just slightly adjusted it.
What changes would you have made? Half time, we're 1-0 down, we've had the goal disallowed. We're going to talk about the goal disallowed. But what would you have done?
Well, first of all, he's not going to do what I would have done, because I think sometimes you have to swallow your pride and say, I've effed up there. I should have put Tavares at left back, and he could have put Nuno on. It would have been ironic if he come on and saved us.
Taken off?
Well, what I said to you, I would have gone to. He had two options for me. Yeah. He could have been Smith Rowe, who was struggling in that central right position, played Tavares on the left hand side, and moved Xhaka where he should have been.
Right.
That's one thing he could do. Yeah. The other thing he could have done for me is he could have given Nicolas Pepe a chance. Nicolas Pepe must wonder what's going on with his Arsenal career, because when he comes on, the minutes that he's having now is just. He's
Where'd you have played him?
I would have moved him on the right hand side. I moved Xhaka over to the left. That's one thing he could have done.
Martinelli up front.
Yeah, I moved Martinelli up front
and take Lacazette out.
Yeah, that's
we'll
one
talk
thing.
about Lacazette in a bit, actually.
That's what you could have done.
Just changes, and you know what? Already you got Saka playing a different position. You got a different question being asked up front. You got Pepe coming on. We know he can do something out of nothing, and Tavares offering that width. So could have tried different things. He ended up bringing
Pepe last year actually got 2 goals against Brighton.
He did.
We beat them 2-0. So and he scored at their ground as well.
Yeah,
a left foot curler when we lost down there the game that Leno got injured. So he's got a goal scoring record against Brighton. So he could have made that change. He could have done that. So we just come up with 2 potential ideas that he could have changed it at half time. But a manager, James, before you come in, just quickly, for a manager like Arteta, who's stubborn, who thinks he's. He would not do that, would he? He would not admit he made a mistake in not playing Tavares in the first place, and that was the problem.
He brought on Nketiah as his first sub. I actually thought Nketiah had a really bright impact. Obviously forced a good save from Sanchez with a really lovely header. Hit the bar. Was he unfortunate, or should he have scored? Should have scored, but it's one of those. It's kind of coming. It's come quite quickly.
Well, Odegaard hit the bar with the original free kick, and it came down to him, and obviously he's got on it. He had to get over it to keep it down. Yeah. It was unlucky. It was instinctive. So, he was a bit unlucky.
I thought Nketiah made a great impact. Made a good impact against Palace when he came on, actually. Yeah. Squared it for Odegaard, I think it was, and was just at the heart of, the better things we were doing, and at a point in the game we looked like we might turn it around. And I want to get that credit in for Nketiah, because I was very critical of him and Pepe when they came on against Villa. I thought they were really poor, but actually when we've needed a goal, against Brighton, against Palace, and then against Wolves when we were 1-0 down, I thought Nketiah came on and actually did turn things around for us. So I think he's going to get a move to a Premier League club, or definitely a good side in a good league, and I think he'll do well. I think Nketiah will prove a good forward who works hard. I think he's better on the ball, and he's got better, almost he can beat his man better than people think. And he's got a natural nick for getting into the box and at least asking questions. When you look at Lacazette and how poor he was in terms of asking any questions at Brighton, Nketiah got 2 shots off immediately and had them worrying. So fair play to Nketiah.
Just before we go into the look at the second half more in depth, that we've got to talk about an incident at the end of the first half.
Right, the Martinelli goal.
Because basically, had we gone in at half time at 1-1, that would have changed everything. We didn't deserve to be level at the break, but we would have been. And it was unbelievable, wasn't it? I was in the stadium 5 minutes waiting for a decision to be made, and do you know what? Even now, I'm a bit unhappy about it. I'll tell you why. Because I don't think they conclusively proved that he was offside. He looked as though he may have been, but how can you overrule an on-field decision if you can't prove it? I mean, I get the thing that if it's offside, they look at it differently, but they didn't get the lines right, did they?
No.
And so they were guessing. And it's a free kick hung up to the back stick, or a set play to the back stick. Gabriel nods it across. Martinelli comes in, nods it in. It's touch and go. He might well have slightly been off, but they couldn't prove it. So, and the annoying thing is that normally in situations like that, the decision stays with the attacking team. It doesn't normally go to defensive team just shows the luck really Arsenal are having in some of these VAR decisions. And Martinelli sprinted over to the touchline like he just scored the winning goal in the World Cup final, hadn't he? So exactly. That made it even more disappointing. But to be in the stadium waiting 5 minutes for that decision and then for it to be ruled out, I think was a hammer blow. Went in at 1-0, came out second half, he made the adjustments. It didn't really change much. And then Brighton's almost scored like an Arsenal goal, a brilliant strike from the edge of the box past Ramsdale to go 2 up. And then, of course, he makes the changes, doesn't he? But for all that, we still struggle to create and score.
We did, and that is a problem that actually we've been in decline for a few years as a club in terms of our goal output. We'll talk about as a collective effort in a bit. But we've got to talk about Alex Lacazette, because what I always say about Lacazette is I actually really like him. I'm not even saying like as our lead number 9. I just really like him as a guy who I think gives his all, whether he's signing a new contract or not, whether he's come off the bench or not, whether he's not started 10 games, or even when he first arrived and he was always getting subbed for Giroud and whatever it was. I always like Lacazette's attitude and his fight and his grit. I think it's a big part of why we beat Wolves in that 96th minute, a month or two ago, because he sets that tone. I also think he suited this Arsenal system better than Aubameyang. I know that there's no depth, we let Aubameyang go. Sure, there's other issues with that, but I think he suits what Arteta wants his striker to do better. But there's a point at which I look at him and I just think, even though I want to credit your work ethic and the fact that you're giving as much as you can and that you clearly care and that you're passionate and you fight. And I also don't think over his years at Arsenal we've been particularly fair to him as a club with some of the signings we've made, the way we've used him, whatever. I think I'm at my limit now, where I just think you've got to be offering more than this. Just backing into players and trying to knock it off and run. And, he knocks off but he doesn't get into the box. Is it that he can't? Is it that he's instructed not to? Is it that he doesn't want to? Is it that he's not confident the ball goes in? Fine, he's not great in the air, or at least there's other centre-backs better than him, but he doesn't look like he's even like making it uncomfortable for the defenders. And I said I like him a lot, and I don't think the reason his Arsenal career has been underwhelming is actually really down to him. I think a lot of it is on the club and the managers and the way he's been used. But at the moment, I'm really struggling to see what he's giving this Arsenal team that means it's not worth giving Martinelli, Smith Rowe, or dare I even say Nketiah a run, but that might just be revisionism.
Yeah, do you know, when I watch him, I think because he's over the last few months he's done this unselfish role for the team.
Yeah, literally, very unselfish.
Give him credit for that, the way he sort of jostles centre halves. He looks to drop into that. We talked about that diamond where he's at the top of a diamond almost in build up. It's almost like come to the detriment of him understanding what he needs to be as a striker, isn't it? It's almost like because he's dropping into midfield and he's doing all that work, when he gets the ball in a shooting position, he just doesn't shoot. It's almost like he's forgot what he basically is as a striker. Because I think shots on target from him, from open, something like 4 shots on target in something like 1,000 minutes of Arsenal Premier League football is, when you think it's been horribly exposed by now what's going on at Tottenham with Harry Kane now. It looks worse every week now, doesn't it? So from that point of view, as much as what he's offered us, it's now we're starting to look at what he's not offering us. And we've got a graphic here which you're going to put up now, which is quite damning, I think. And we've looked at him against forwards from the bottom 4 teams in the Premier League, James, haven't we? The striker problem. Lacazette be the lower table forwards, and he's got like 4 goals there in 25 games. Pukki, who plays for Norwich, has got 8 in 30. King at Watford, 5 in 28. Rodriguez at Burnley, only 2 in 26. Calvert-Lewin at Everton, 3 in 13. But that's the sort of company he's in, and he's playing for a team challenging for the Champions League. They're playing for teams struggling at the bottom of the league, where they probably don't get that many chances because they don't get so much of the ball.
Yeah, very, very
so
true.
Those numbers are quite damning, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they really are. I think Arsenal's numbers as a team wanting to score goals and entertain, the Arsenal way, all that, I think they're pretty damning as well. Let's have a little look at our goal record for the last 5 seasons. Obviously this season's not finished yet, and we've got 8 games left. Are we necessarily definitely going to outscore the last 2 seasons? I don't think it's even a given.
No.
76 goals we scored in Arsene Wenger's final season.
That's it. Yeah. And then we had 73 Emery's first season, 73, and the numbers have been dipping, haven't they, every year. Then the following season was the season where Emery was sacked and then Arteta took over. So you understand why they might drop. But then the next 2 seasons, Arteta has been in charge, and this season he's even had his team, hasn't he? The players that he wants. Yeah. So that's been our problem. So it looks likely now that we're not going to get top 4. And if you want to know the reason why, it's because we're not scoring goals. I mean, 100%. Strikers, goals change everything in football matches, don't they?
Yeah.
Football's a tight game decided by who's got the best strikers, and that's why, in effect, we are now struggling against Spurs, who literally are winning games, but also scoring goals every week now. Their goal difference, they've massively turned around in just 2 weeks, haven't they?
And if you went into the data and the raw numbers and everything, it's not even that Tottenham are outplaying teams, having 30 shots and scoring a load of goals. They're being incredibly efficient with what they're doing. You know, Conte's come in, gone to a back 3, told the wing backs to get high and wide and into the box, and he's basically said Kulusevski, Kane and Son build an understanding. We know Kane and Son have a tremendous understanding, and they're scoring for fun, and it is so difficult to watch because I think we came out of this weekend with an XG of 2.2 or whatever, comfortably out XGing or whatever you want to call it, Brighton, whereas Villa, in terms of balance of play, out XG'd or whatever Spurs, you want to call it, Spurs. But do Spurs care? Absolutely not, because they created, some good chances, and they took them and they punished and they punished Villa, and and that's when I was watching them against Newcastle last week, Newcastle thought probably edging it in the first half. They get the goal. Son with an unbelievable cross, goal. Kane, unbelievable cross, goal. So it's not even just individual quality. I think it's a team thing from Arsenal's perspective, but we don't have the individual quality to bail us out when we are having a bad one like we were against Brighton. So really, really disappointing. We've got some roundup stats we'll go through in a sec. Just before we do, let's have a look at the comment section. Hope you guys have enjoyed this live. I know it's not been fun because we're talking about Arsenal and another defeat, but I hope you've enjoyed the fact that it has been live. You guys, 1,000 live viewers, which is fantastic. We're going to rattle through a load of comments, do some questions, and then round up on the stats as well. Virupaska says, no Tavares at left back, or rather a back 3. Followed on by this question from Pramod says, Graham, would you have gone for a 3 at the back? Do you want to see Arsenal go 3 at the back?
I think in the games coming up at Tottenham, Chelsea, even potentially West Ham, certainly the 2 teams who play back 3, I would match them up for definitely. I think it sometimes depends who you're playing against. If you're playing a top team away from home, a back 3 for sure. In those games, yes, I'd say. But overall this season, he's built this system 4-3-3, hasn't he, that's been working, but the problem is now it's disrupted. So if he's not going to play a 4-2-3-1, if he's not going to put Sambi next to Xhaka, yes, a back 3.
Okay, Amo says Arteta killing players' careers prematurely rather than working on developing players' relationships and developing the players' footballing skills. I mean, there's always been this kind of weird cloud over Arteta's man management, hasn't there? When you see the amount of players who have gone and we don't really know why, we just feel we have to trust the club and the manager's judgment. But here's another player in Tavares where you do feel like he's not been particularly fair with what he said in the press conference, and then not playing him, taking him off against Forest where he wasn't great, but he wasn't awful either. Not starting against Brighton, all a bit strange.
He's going to have to replace him now. I think Tavares will be out of his club. I hate to say it, but I think that he's killed him, and I think that he'll be out of the. He'll be gone in the summer, and we've got to now buy a new left back. But the one thing he's got to learn then, if he's going to buy a new left back, the next left back is going to have to be someone who's going to be better than just a backup. It's going to have to be someone who he can trust when he plays him. Because let's face it, Kieran Tierney does pick up a few injuries, as good as he is. So maybe he does.
That is a problem. That is a problem.
Yeah, it is a problem. So he's going to need, I think, better than a young raw talent then when he goes out, because I think Tavares, he's out of the club in the summer. I think he's literally that.
I hope not. I quite like Tavares.
I think James, I disagree. I think if he ain't going to pick him at home against Brighton, In a game like that, he's not going to pick him again, is he?
Yeah, well, then I want Arteta to show him a little bit more faith. But I get what you mean. If he's not going to pick him, then he's got to.
Has he?
Yeah. Adfone says, play Saka left back, start Pepe.
I'm going to say play Laka at left back there.
Imagine that. Laka, Saka, Xhaka, left back, the lot. You will see Pepe right wing, Saka at left back. I'm not sure about taking Saka out of his positions. Virupaska said Liverpool would have been given Martinelli's goal. I have no doubt. Tell you what, they got away with a few red cards, didn't they?
Oh, we were saying that before. I mean, that was a fantastic game of football yesterday. They are a million miles ahead of where we are, and a long way to go before we get that level. And I thought yesterday, watching that game, and I know it's slightly digressing away from Arsenal, just quickly, very quickly, we talked about strikers, didn't we? About the Liverpool, for me, Man City, I think probably should have won that game with a better. I thought they were a better team. But the one thing they can't do against Liverpool is switch off like they did, because that's how Liverpool scored their goals, because they punished them for. And when you got Salah and Mane, Joshua, and up front, in an instant you can be being beaten in a game, and they can just get it back level just like that, and that's what happened yesterday. I thought, and that shows you what you need. If you have forwards like that, they can, even when you're not in games, you've got a chance of coming back in games like Liverpool did yesterday. It was for all that. I'm not dissing Liverpool. I thought Liverpool played really well yesterday, but I thought Man City probably should have won it.
Muzzy says, to be absolutely honest, Arteta has to go. In 2 games, he's thrown away our Champions League spots to Spurs. I cannot ever forgive him. Arteta out.
Can I just make one point, James? To the who's the guy saying it? Muzzy. Yeah. When Conte came in, we said this before we started this morning. Spurs were only 2 points behind us, so people forget that. So, but I think it's because we got into such a good position, and I think it's more the collapse, the quick collapse that is where we're now. If anything, we're looking down the table instead of up, aren't we? I mean, we're now looking. We need to secure. We're not out the top 4, but it's looking extremely unlikely now with the fixtures we've got left for what they've got left. We need to secure 5th or 6th to get the Europa League. Yeah,
which is hardly something to get too excited about. But
well,
unfortunately, Arsenal got to do it.
I think the only thing I would say is, are we yet a Champions League club?
Team, not club.
Team. Yeah, we're not, are we? To be fair.
Sorry, what I meant is we are club. We're not.
If you
team,
think of where he's started rebuilding this season, a young team. I think the focus was always, and I'm not making excuses. People say, "Oh, you're making excuses now because the top 4's gone." But I think we would have got into the Champions League probably quicker than what he probably expected to do. And I think European football was the target this season. I still think that even if we get Europe, we're still going to attract some good players in the summer. Obviously, Champions League, you'll be attracting a slightly better calibre. Like Nunes, for example, of Benfica. He scored a hat-trick yesterday. I don't know if you saw his goals. He looks top quality. And all of a sudden, if we're not in the Champions League and Chelsea and Man United come knocking, he's going to go there, isn't he? So, but that's the difference. But I still think this season, it was all about getting back into Europe as the least he had to do. And so if we get Europa League, as much as a disappointment to miss out on Champions League, he has still secured European football. Whether people think that's enough to save him, people got different opinions. I respect everybody's opinion. Some people still don't think he's the right manager for the club. Fair enough, I respect that opinion. But I'm just saying that I think that if I looked at the start of the season, I didn't see us getting Champions League.
Jackie says Biereth worth a try. He is tall, strong and fresh. John, who I think is a rival fan, says, can Brighton play you every week? Very good. Don says he wants to see Nketiah playing more. Arash says Laka needs to be benched. Give Eddie a go in the meantime. What do we have to lose now? Ken says Arteta has killed Pepe. A few others calling for Pepe. Vinny says Ober's form was Arteta's fault. Might well have been, quite frankly. He also says Arteta makes things more difficult. He's a rookie. Should have played El Neni, says Callum. Kieran says, would we take Giroud back? Listen, he'd probably link up our play better than Lacazette has been in the last couple of games. Ben says, we don't have enough squad depth for the Premier League, let alone Europe. Liberty saying, would you take Lukaku on loan? Bloody hell, imagine that. And Steve wants to see Martinelli up top. Guys, thank you so much for sending in your comments. giving us your thoughts around the game, tactically, what you want to see. I'll round off on some of these stats. Mikel Arteta's now lost 12 of his 45 Premier League games at the Emirates. That's quite a lot, isn't it? Arsene Wenger lost just 12 of his last 116 matches at home. Was it at home or
at the Emirates?
Yeah. Arsenal now just 7 points better off than the equivalent fixtures of last season after losing the last 2 games to teams that they beat in 2020-21. Yeah, that's such a good point. Only 7 points better off. You know, it can spiral out of control quite quickly, can't it? You know, 2 weeks ago we were saying then that we were 13 points better off. I remember doing that on Tactical Insight
and that's 2 losses, isn't it? We've actually lost 3 of our last 4, James.
Yeah. Only Man City have hit the woodwork more often than Arsenal in the Premier League this season. And Nketiah and Pepe completed more passes versus Brighton than Lacazette. Wow. Lacazette only completed 5 passes in Brighton's half and has now gone 20 hours and 53 minutes of Premier League football without scoring a goal from open play. When we talked about him and the fact we need to see a little bit more. I know he'll always try and he'll give us his all. But we need the end product. We need the output there. So
I think the thing is now in closing. I think the thing is the Southampton game now is absolutely crucial. We've got to stop this slide, and we've got to win at Southampton to get us into a position. Also to get the confidence back to go into these harder runner games. That Southampton game.
Oh yeah, because there's
massive.
at least pride on the line. I mean, my God, if we lose, you know, 4th place to Spurs, at least say you did the double on them this season. You know, at least. I mean, there's no excuse, but at least tell yourself, because we didn't have Partey and Tierney, and give yourself something to feel better about. Yeah, we need to turn this around, and you know, we want to beat Man United. I want to beat West Ham. I want to beat Chelsea. I want to beat Spurs. These teams who are in and around us, to show that. Let's a couple more players.
Not the mic. Let's just beat Southampton first, mate. That's the first thing we need to do. We need to stop this slide before it becomes like.
We're in danger of going, well, season done now. And actually, it's not done. And actually, watch the live stream I did with Turkish Arsenal. We kind of looked at the fixtures and where Arsenal could maybe get themselves back in it, take a minor miracle, but I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility. It's not over, but it looks incredibly difficult after the last week we've had. So, yeah, it's a shame. That's back-to-back Tactical Insights, so we've not really had too much to enjoy. But we haven't had a goal to break down, especially because the one we scored against Brighton was a deflected effort. But guys, if you've enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. If you enjoyed it live, longer show, we've basically gone for an hour. Normally we do 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So let us know if you enjoyed this longer, slightly more in-depth show with your comments, your feedback, your thoughts, your breakdown as well involved. Let us know if you enjoyed it and what else you want to see being brought into the show for the start of next season as well, because of course we'll be back doing this every single game. But there are 8 Premier League games to go. We'll be breaking down every single one of those. Hopefully Arsenal can turn this around. And listen, we've said it before, top 4 over, and we had turned it around and got ourselves into a position where it looked really good. Can Arsenal do it again? Might be tougher this time. Thank you, Graham.
Cheers, mate.
Smash a like on this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, because it all does help for all the content we want to be bringing you as well. Thanks as always. See you next time.